Let's take a look at how to set up a book light, one of my favorite diffusion techniques to use when working in a small location. A book light is something easy that you can put together, regardless of your budget. All of the lighting equipment I'm going to be using in this video is very affordable, and I'm hoping it will demonstrate that you don't need big expensive lights to get a decent shot. You should be able to make this work with whatever lighting equipment you have lying around at home. Book lights come in a variety of forms. Anytime you bounce light and then diffuse it can technically be called a book light. One of the most common setups, however, is the one we're going to explain in this video. This one most resembles its name as it actually looks like a book. All you'll need is a light, some sort of bounce material, and some diffusion. I'm using the Godox SL60 as my light, the white side of a 5-in-1 reflector as my bounce, and I'm diffusing this through a piece of unbleached muslin, but you can use anything as diffusion material. Shears, a shower curtain, anything that you have that can diffuse light. I'm also using a couple of cheap light stands and a T-bar to hold the materials. The camera that you use doesn't matter, but just so you know, for these examples, I'm using my Sony a7 III with a Tamron 28 to 75mm lens. I kept my settings the same throughout, and the only thing that I changed was the lighting. My shutter was set to 50 or 180 degrees, the aperture was 2.8, my ISO was 800, which is the native ISO for S-Log2, and my white balance was set to 5600 Kelvin to match my key light. The first thing that I did was to find the composition for my subject and to set my exposure for the ambient light coming in through the window that was just to the right of frame. Once I knew where my subject would be sitting, I started to set up my light. The first thing to set up with a book light is the bounce. Position your light and bounce where you'd like it to hit your subject. As you can see, the light is still quite harsh as I have my Godox set to full power because I knew eventually I would be diffusing it again. So now let's bring in the diffusion. This is where it becomes a book light, as you can see from the shape. I set up the unbleached muslin from a T-bar so that it diffuses the light that is being bounced onto our subject. Make sure that you close any gaps, stopping any unwanted light leak. Now the light is looking nice and soft. However, for this particular shot, I felt that the contrast ratio between the light side and shadow side of our subject was a bit too strong, and so I added in a bit of fill to bring up that exposure. I used an Aperture MC panel for this, with the small diffusion material that it comes with. I only wanted the tiniest bit of fill on the subject, so the power was set to 25%. It's a small but noticeable difference. If I wanted this shot to be a bit moodier, I would have left this out, but for this particular shot, I wanted it to be more clean and corporate. For the final finishing touches to this scene, I added in a small practical in the background. This was a tungsten bulb, so it adds a slight bit of colour contrast to the daylight scene. I also added a black pro mist filter to the lens, just to soften up the highlights a bit. This is the final shot with a bit of a stronger colour grade. Here's a quick recap of the stages we went over to set up this book light. Just remember, this is only one example of how a book light can be set up. It can be any light in any sort of position that is bounced and then diffused. I hope you found this video useful. If you have any questions, let me know in the comment section below. If you want to watch some of my other lighting breakdowns, you can find them here. And if you want to be notified of when I upload new videos, consider subscribing if you haven't already. I look forward to seeing you next time. Take care.